Hi, welcome to IPA Talk. I'm Allison Maley, and joining me today is Kim Mangiarcino. She is the Executive Director of the Children's Advocacy Centers of Illinois. So today we're talking about legislation that's effective immediately that regards allegations of sexual assault among school personnel and students. So Kim is here to kind of talk about what the CACs are, what they do, and how the legislation will affect principals and school administrators going forward. So Kim, if you want to just kind of share with us, what is a CAC for those that don't know, and what is their role in this process?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Sure.
We're always happy to talk about child advocacy centers and how they work and let the public as well as the schools understand that system. So a child advocacy center is a physical place where when there are allegations of sexual or severe physical abuse of a child under 18 or a person under 18, the investigation will take place starting at the Child Advocacy Center. Mm-hmm. So the way that looks is if a report goes through to the Department of Children and Family Services or law enforcement, if it's sexual abuse or severe physical abuse, that will trigger a referral to the Child Advocacy Center in that area. Okay. In Illinois, we have 102 counties, and 98 of those are covered by an accredited child advocacy center. Mm-hmm. So most school districts will have an accredited child advocacy center in their area. And then those other 4 counties, there are also child advocacy center resources available as well. Okay. So once that referral is made to a child advocacy center, then the child and their non-offending caregiver will show up to the child advocacy center, and there will be what we call an MDT, and that's a multidisciplinary team response. And that multidisciplinary team is made up of law enforcement, mental health providers, medical providers, Department of Children and Family Services, Child Advocacy Center staff, such as a forensic interviewer and an advocate. And those people will all meet together to ensure a coordinated response for this allegation. Okay. They come together, the child comes to the center with the parent, and then the parent will meet with an advocate, so they'll be able to understand what's going on in their family and what support they might need. The child will then be interviewed by a trained, specialized professional that understands how to interview a child, what's necessary information to get from them, as well as understand developmentally appropriate questions to ask. That interview is viewed by the rest of the multidisciplinary team, and it's also recorded so that in the hopes that that child would not have to be re-interviewed.
Right. And that's really what kind of led to Senate Bill 456, right? So there was an investigation that the Chicago Tribune did into Chicago public schools and some situations where I believe students were unfortunately interviewed multiple times by multiple different people and re-victimized in a lot of ways. So that's, if you want to kind of talk about more about the impetus behind the bill, but that's kind of what we've been sharing with our members for several months now as this bill has kind of come along in the process.
Sure. Last summer, there was a Chicago Tribune series about students from Chicago Public School that in particular had been interviewed several times by school personnel, and it really led to a lot of discussion about best practices and how we're going to treat kids when there are allegations of sexual abuse. What I know from working in this system and working around the state is that this happens often, and typically it's by well-meaning people who want to understand sometimes before a report is made, or they want to understand the full scope of the problem. Unfortunately, sexual abuse is very complicated, and it requires a higher level of expertise, really focused on dynamics of child abuse and the understanding of developmentally appropriate questions. So that's a big part of the concern that child advocacy centers had about children being interviewed by people who didn't understand these dynamics. And that's where a lot of the conversations started last year.
Right. And I think we had conversations as the bill was being negotiated about, the school personnel role or administrator role in if there's disciplinary action to be taken for a school staff member or volunteer or a vendor. I think, like you said, well-meaning in trying to kind of get to the root of that problem and figure out what they needed to do on their end, but obviously, had a negative impact on the child or children. So here we are now. We've got Senate Bill 456, which is now Public Act. I don't have the number in front of me, but it is now law.
It is.
And kind of, there's some changes to things regarding background checks and some other items that we will kind of get into for our members in our legislative and case law update. But really kind of the meat of it is what happens when there is an allegation of sexual assault involving school personnel, involving school staff or vendors or volunteers. Because that's really what this is mostly about, is, those kinds of interactions if they have been alleged to occur. So I guess can you kind of walk me through what a principal would need to do if those allegations arise?
Well, as always, even before this law, what we would expect is that as a mandated reporter, the principal would make a mandated reporter call to DCFS.
Right. Or instruct their staff to do so.
Or instruct their staff,
whomever.
whoever that information came through. So that would be, of course, the first step. But then the big change here would be that instead of making that initial step to interview that child, sometimes that's like a vetting process, or sometimes it's just to get more information as a principal, as a school staff, to step back from that. I think it's a very new way of thinking for people. But knowing that it is a sexual abuse allegation and knowing that it involves staff, then we're going to now step back and we're going to refer that to the multidisciplinary team in their area. Mm-hmm. And again, the two multidisciplinary staff they would be working with would be law enforcement and DCFS, particularly. Sure. But also what we would be wanting is a conversation between that school and their representative and the Child Advocacy Center, mm-hmm. So that there was connection right from the beginning about coordinating that case, mm-hmm. Getting that child to come to the center. Sure. Right away. What we know about child sexual abuse and interviewing is it ideally should be done as soon as possible, and we know that we should limit the number of times that a child's asked to talk about for a number of reasons, sure. Reducing trauma, as well as we want to have details that can't be misconstrued.
Right.
So for both of those reasons, we want this response to be pretty fast. Mm-hmm. Reach out to that CAC and that multidisciplinary team, and work with them in order to make sure that child's interviewed appropriately, mm-hmm. and that they can step back from that, but then also have communication with the investigators so that the school districts are getting what they need as well.
Right. Yeah. And I think that was sort of a concern going into it was, okay, well, what if we have a person in our midst that we need to, do something with, perhaps a staff member or otherwise, that, needs to be separated from children. When will we get that information? And I think, I have had conversations mm-hmm. about how that's a pretty timely process once the child comes and has the interview, and the wheels start moving in that sure. manner. So
yeah, and typically interviews should be done, always as quickly as possible. Sure. Sometimes there are delays with the families, sometimes there could be delays with the team, but we want to make sure that we're responding as quickly as possible, mm-hmm. especially in situations where you have an adult that is going to have access to a lot of other children, as well, though, that they are that the school's being responsive to their employees, mm-hmm. and being able to respond to things quickly. So CAC referrals typically will move within the same day to the next day or two. Sure. I think with this legislation, it says that it should be done in 15 days. Mm-hmm.
But typically it's shorter, much shorter than that.
Typically it's is much shorter. It's a quick process. All child advocacy centers have what they call an emergency protocol in place. So if the team deems that this is an emergency, then that can move even quicker. So,
gotcha. Yeah. Well, great. Well, I think we've kind of talked about any changes that may come with procedures and things that happen at the school. Is there anything else you'd like principals to know about what the CACs do, or how they can get in touch with your office or with their local CAC?
Sure. Child advocacy centers really started as a forensic interviewer, a place to do forensic interviews, but in the past 30 years have evolved into much more, and they're able to respond to children and families about the traumas that they present with, helping both the child and the family understand why they might be responding the way they are, what's going on in their life. And we also want to be able to do that for the schools, because it's, again, a complicated process, and there are a lot of dynamics that are happening that the general public doesn't necessarily understand when children are and their families have experienced this. So what I always encourage people to do is reach out to your local child advocacy center. If you don't know where they're at, you can go to the Children's Advocacy Center of Illinois.org. Our website, there is a map on that website. You can click on your county and it will give you contact information for the Child Advocacy Center in your area. Many child advocacy centers, they would all love to reach out to schools. Some are a little limited on their resources, but they will help you as much as they can with giving you training resources, giving you some CACs come in and give teacher in services about sexual abuse, about mandated reporting. I just encourage any school districts or any principals to make that connection with your CAC, because we both are organizations that do so much work with children, and at CACs we know that schools spend the most time with kids, sometimes more than anyone. So, and we also know that teachers and principals care about their kids. That's why they're there. And we just would like to enrich that relationship between CACs and school districts moving forward, so that we can serve our kids the best that we can, as well as the teachers that we appreciate so much.
Of course. Yeah. So I want to thank our guest, Kim Mangiarcino from the Children's Advocacy Centers of Illinois. We'll have more information about how to reach them in our description below, so be sure to scroll down and click those links. And thank you for watching another IPA Talk.